So Wicked, obviously a play is different than a film, of course.
For sure.
Galinda's character is pivotal because the audience has to be like annoyed with her, upset with her behavior, not enough with her turned off, but also she has to push it or you won't buy the transformation. What was the challenge of crafting Galinda's character for that?
I think that's a great question, and honestly, it's so funny. Last night we were at a party. We had like sort of an orphan Valentine party, and we all started talking about, are you Glinda, are you Elphaba? And I was like, I'm definitely Elphaba. And all my friends were like, you're 100% Glinda. Like, what are you talking about? And I think for me, I actually felt more comfortable writing for Elphaba, and Winnie Holzman, who's the greatest of all time, I can't wait for you to talk to her. She was so good at writing Glinda. I mean, she was great at writing everything, but she just had this very specific line on Glinda, and it was amazing. And for me, what I tried to contribute to the Glinda stuff was just that feeling of a sense of complicity. Like, I remember coming up with the idea that she had to light the effigy on fire, because originally it was just like somebody lit the effigy and she was just standing there, and I was like, no, you have to make her light that fire, because you have to make her complicit in order to really, as you say, care about her journey and her transformation.
Obviously, the ballroom scene is a critical scene because Elphaba goes through a lot. She thinks she's going to be accepted.
I know.
She's rejected, but actually finally makes a connection and a friend.
Yeah.
What was your process of that scene? Because everything wrote on that scene, actually, I think, for the film.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, it's so funny. I can't watch that scene. I've seen the movie 600 times. I can't watch that scene without explosively crying. And I think for me, it's when Cynthia, who just gave so much humanity to this character and so much rawness and emotion to this character, when she walks in with that hope in her face, and she thinks she's going to have a really good night, and then the minute she sees what's going on, she realizes the whole thing was a setup. I can't watch it. It's so painful to me. So I think, honestly, that scene, we wrote it pretty simply, and yet in the finding of it, I have to give credit to the girls, to jonmchu, to Alice Brooks, the incredible DP. I think that's where they really found those moments, was in them doing it all together, and that incredible alchemy between Cynthia and Ariana, the way that they worked with each other emotionally, and they didn't prepare for that in the same way that, you rehearse things to death sometimes so that you can nail them, and Ariana didn't learn the choreography because she wanted to really be copying Cynthia in the moment. They only did a few takes, and all of that emotion that you see was really real. It was like actually happening, and it wasn't planned. So to me, I have to give credit to the rest of the team for that.
Now,
one.
obviously, you're setting up the great musical numbers because the popular song would not have worked if you didn't have the ballroom scene.
That's a great point.
When you were writing, were you thinking about that? We have to keep the drama going, but we have to set up the great musical numbers.
We were constantly thinking about the music, and I had the good fortune of doing 158 hours of Zooms with Winnie Holzman, Steven Schwartz, and jonmchu before we ever even put pen to paper, which was like the greatest masterclass of all time. I had the time of my life. But, Steven is so brilliant, and watching the way that his songs actually tell the entire story was really incredible, and realizing that we have to get the characters emotionally to a place at the beginning of the song that the song itself will keep telling the story. And so one of the things I tried to do is anywhere that a lyric gave me chills, I wanted to make sure, did we have the character do something before that made that lyric really land? So we constantly were trying to bolster the emotion of the music by making sure that if we added anything that wasn't in the play, it was in the service of that.
Well, Dancing Through Life is one of my favorite musicals. Would not have worked if you didn't have the Cynthia and Jonathan Bailey scene previously, setting up that real, their views that he's just a partier and she's not.
Exactly. Oh, Dancing Through Life. Jonathan Bailey, the star.
All right, so our last question. Obviously, the end was so dramatic between Cynthia and Ariana. What were your views when you saw their performance of your scripted scene of their final resolution to their relationship for the film?
Yeah, I mean, you almost as a writer never get a moment where somebody realizes a scene that you've written to that degree of expertise. Like, I mean, the first time I saw it, I missed the majority of it because I was crying so hard that I couldn't actually see the screen. The second time I saw it was when I really, really enjoyed it because I was actually able to see through my tears to watch the scene. And I think it was absolutely extraordinary the way that they teased out the very last note, because that wasn't in the play. Her ability to fly around was special to the movie. And we wanted you to touch base with some of the other characters so that you would remember where you were with them, so that, going into the second movie, you know where you are with everybody. And just the fact that that note is coming and we refuse to give it to you is like, ugh. And then, jonmchu actually deserves the credit for that incredible moment where she jumped out of the window and it breaks and she just falls, because originally she crashed out of the window and she flew. And we just sort of, he knew something wasn't quite there. And so he came up with the idea with Alice Brooks of The Falling. And then I think John had the idea to have her reach out and realize it was her former self that was the one that was going to save her. Was like, I have to save that little girl. It's not about me, it's about her. And that was, I mean, I get chills talking about it. But go jonmchu.
All right, so the whole movie really hinges on Elphaba and Glinda's relationship.
That's true.
And we know the musical numbers would not have worked if you didn't pull that off. What were the biggest...
We're so grateful that we got the two most amazing women on the planet to play those parts.
So what was the challenge for Glinda specifically? We had to kind of be annoyed with her for a long time, disappointed in her, but you had to also push it far enough so the redemption meant something.
She has somewhere to go. You know, she has a lot to learn. I think they actually both have something to learn, but Glinda has a lot to learn. And it's her friendship with Elphaba that's going to teach her, a lot of hard truths. And it's going to bring her to her true self. It's going to reveal her true destiny. So, she's human.
Everything really rides on the ballroom scene. If the audience doesn't buy that scene, the film really doesn't work. What were the challenges in creating that scene, finally when they came together?
Well, interestingly, the writing of that scene is very much how it's written on stage. The difference is how John chose to shoot it, jonmchu, the amazing jonmchu, but also those two women, Ariana and Cynthia, what they brought emotionally just brought it to another level. And they were so naked and raw in that scene, and I think you can't help but be moved.
So, and what are you most excited about for the audience to see in the next film, without giving away anything?
I'm just excited because there's a lot of new stuff in the next film, so I'm excited to feel people's reactions, and I just can't wait.
The whole relationship of the movie is Elphaba, and Glinda. The movie would not work if you didn't actually build a dramatic relationship.
Yeah.
What were the biggest challenges in creating their relationship so we can accept and enjoy the musical numbers?
Well, one was finding them. Who was the right perfect Elphaba? Who was the right Glinda? They never did a chemistry read together, so we never knew. We had done chemistry with other people, but I don't know what was wrong with me, but I never paired them. And once I knew that Cynthia was Elphaba and Glinda was Glinda, like there was no other choice, and I was like, oh, I hope they get along. And they came to my house 6 months after we hired them. And it was during the COVID time, so we were in lockdown. And Stephen Schwartz and Winnie was there, and they played the piano. He played the piano and played For Good, and they sang there for the first time, and it was so magical. I knew that their relationship, even though it was beginning there, that it was already these two titans of their industries sharing in the new beginning. And I thought that if the camera could capture that, then we had a movie.
Everything rides on the ballroom scene.
Yes, absolutely.
Really everything rides, and it's
Absolutely,
also very silent in a lot of ways, which I love.
Yeah.
What was the process for you trying to deliver that? Because that was the critical scene that sets up the second half of the film.
Well, I always found the show very moving in that moment, even though they're sort of plays as a joke. It's like a funny dance. But when we started to, in the reality of a movie and having your audience buy into it, and the way we were looking at Elphaba, what are her moves, that she actually does have pride in how she moves. When in our rehearsals with Christopher Scott and our team, Comfort and Cynthia together, they found these moves that felt very personal to Cynthia herself. And with Ari, they created this sort of silent moment, and we didn't know it could survive. I mean, in rehearsals, it was 15 minutes long.
Wow.
And but it was so moving. Like it was very compelling that in a giant musical number to have that pause and silence and space it was going to be critical to how this movie played out, more than even how the show uses it.
One musical number question, we'll let you go.
Yes.
The Dancing Through Life is my favorite number.
Yes,
How was it, though, doing on practical sets, giving your actors some space to actually sing live on a real set?
Yeah, it was nuts. I mean, you have to have actors who are game, and they're singing live, and they're dancing, jumping up on desks. You have an amazing dance team, and then you have to have your production design to be able to design a giant spinning bookcase. You have to have the means to be able to do that. Then you have to have costume designers who understand how the shoes need to be so that they aren't slipping around everywhere. And then you have to have the rehearsals. And before you've ever built anything, they have to build sort of default things so that you know the spacing and the timing. And we all work together to create. So it's very much a composite of all of our vision together in a way.